Bobby, I hope you are having a great day, great night. Wanted to pop in today, not for an episode of Crypto Happy Hour because it is 7:03 a.m. Eastern time, at least for me. So no Crypto Happy Hour here, but a little Crypto Coffee Hour to chat about the latest happenings in the crypto landscape. I know that I've been MIA for the past 2 weeks or so, at least on Twitter and on the YouTube. So or on the YouTube and on the podcast. So apologies on that. Just been super busy with the new venture, Proof of Talent, which is a good thing, but that's been taking up a lot of my time, fortunately or unfortunately. So wanted to take the time today to kind of hang out with you guys a little bit and talk about the elephant in the room, and or the United States president in the room, and or what I'm not political, but if you come after my Bitcoin, no, I'm kidding, but seriously. What's going on, Elvis? What's going on, Dumbo, Napkin Man, Kyle, Elvis? Hope you guys are having a good one. And yeah, I just have it's literally iced coffee from it's like Khalifa Farms iced coffee. I don't know, whatever. And as we're letting some people hop in here and start joining it, a few different things we can cover today. Obviously, we can talk about Donald J. Trump's tweet about Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, and Libra, because I do think that there's definitely a little bit to unpack there. And I'm actually, it's funny because the tweet led with Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, but goes into Libra pretty quickly, and I think that's where you need to focus or be interested in, because I personally think the United States government is freaking terrified right now of Facebook and Libra, for better or for worse. So I'll hop into that. Also want to talk about Bitcoin versus altcoins, and it has been a really interesting few weeks, at least in my opinion, seeing the discussion on Twitter. It's getting more and more, at least in my mind, the discussion on Twitter is kind of getting a little harsh, as far as you either have all of your money in Bitcoin, and you like there's kind of two sides of the spectrum, at least in my mind. There are people that, and everybody has their own right to have whatever thought process they want, and kind of, discuss things however that they, discuss things however they'd like. But you kind of have two thoughts on Twitter right now. You have Bitcoiners, I'm not even going to say maximalists, but you just have Bitcoiners who obviously are very passionate about Bitcoin and are kind of enjoying the spoils of what has been a fantastic year for Bitcoin. Bitcoin is up 215% year to date, according to according to On-Chain FX, which is better than CoinMarketCap. And then, a variety of other cryptocurrencies out there, at least the larger ones, have lagged. ETH is only up 107%. XRP is actually down on the year, which is pretty pathetic. You have Litecoin up 248%, which actually outpaced Bitcoin. Bitcoin Cash is up 124%. BNB is still up 430 plus percent. EOS is only up 89%. So Bitcoin has really been kind of leading the way, especially in comparison to the Ethereums, the Bitcoin Cashes, the Bitcoin SVs, the Trons, the XRPs, the Stellars, the Cardanos. So you have a couple people, or you have a variety of people saying basically, put all your money in Bitcoin and you are a terrible human being if you have any money in shitcoins. And then you have the shitcoiners on the other side of the house that are basically praying for an alt season and kind of waiting for an alt season, and hoping and crossing their fingers every single day, and hoping that money is going to come out there. And then you maybe have some people in the middle that are like, hey, Bitcoin's fantastic. There might be some other altcoins with a nice use case. We'll see. But there's two very different sides of the spectrum on Twitter, at least. I think it's kind of funny watching just people go after each other. It gets a little bit old after a while, but it's something that I think is just kind of the narrative is getting stronger as time goes, especially as Bitcoin, according to On-Chain FX, Bitcoin dominance now is at 68%, which is super, super strong. And according to CoinMarketCap, Bitcoin dominance is over 65% for the first time, I believe, might be the first time since really mid 2017. So over 2 years, this is the strongest Bitcoin dominance we have really ever seen for the past 2 years, kind of since ETH had its run in early 2017 and really sucked away a lot of the market cap dominance from Bitcoin. So it's been fun to watch that pan out. Taking a look at some of these questions here too. The J stands for Jesus. So yeah, I mean, I think that it's nobody knows how things are going to go. There's for me to sit here and say that one thing is going to basically Bitcoin is going to continue to run. I think it's certainly possible. I think when people look at the quote unquote institutions coming to cryptocurrency or larger investors coming to cryptocurrency, for the most part, that type of money goes into Bitcoin, and it does go with the digital gold thesis. I think, at least that's kind of my opinion. You even had the Fed chairman talking about people not utilizing Bitcoin as a cryptocurrency per se, as a currency, but as a kind of a substitute for gold. And that narrative has kind of, I think, continued to develop in a positive way as a investment class, as something that is a store of wealth. And when you see the way Bitcoin has moved, and people will give Bitcoin shit as a bad store of wealth because it has had really strong runs and then really strong drops. But when you look at Bitcoin in its entirety, there's like 90 days in the entire history now where if you bought out of a 10-year span, you had to have bought within like a 90-day window where you would actually have lost money. Outside of that 90-day window, you're basically either break even or profit. Granted, that 90-day window was probably the most talked about period of Bitcoin ever, at least from a mainstream perspective, a retail investor perspective. So there were a lot of people that entered into the space at that point in time, but it's still maths, right? Johnny Bull XRP, that's because you can't use Bitcoin as a currency, doesn't scale. Well, yes, for now, I would say Bitcoin is not as quote unquote scalable as some of the other cryptocurrencies out there. I would say it is more secure than the other cryptocurrencies out there and more decentralized in nature as well. So you do have pluses and minuses when it does come down to scalability, as we always talk about on the channel. There's always going to be things that you look at with crypto assets where somebody might have 1,000 transactions per second, but all those nodes are being run by 10 central parties that could receive a cease and desist letter. And to that point, we'll hop into exactly, I think we can go from the thought process of a Bitcoin doesn't scale and why that doesn't necessarily matter as much. And we'll hop into that right now. So the big thing that people talked about, we'll pull this bad boy up. You delete the tweets? Did he delete the fucking tweets? No, he couldn't have deleted the tweets. Where is he? Oh, there we go. So Donald Trump, if you guys did not see this, and I am not political in nature at all. I hate politics. I don't care about politics. I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But hey, we got to get into it, right? So Donald Trump tweets this: "I'm not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money and whose value is highly volatile and based on thin air." That's basically all true. "Unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior, including drug trade and other illegal activity." So there's 3 tweets. We'll break it down individually though. So he basically says not a fan of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which are not money, and whose value is highly volatile and out of thin air. Well, yes, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are highly volatile. The value is essentially based out of thin air, but the same could be said about numerous other government other government currencies, including the dollar, which left the gold standard a long time ago, and its value really isn't pegged to anything outside of the good faith of the United States of America. And then to that point too, unregulated crypto assets can facilitate unlawful behavior. Yes, they can, but so can the United States dollar, so can a number of other fiat cryptocurrencies, or another number of other fiat currencies, including drug trade and other illegal activity. So you're looking at this criticism, at least to me, doesn't necessarily, it's not like a deadly criticism, because number one, it's nothing we didn't know. Yeah, assets can facilitate unlawful behavior. So does the United States dollar. It's actually better to, at least in my opinion, or especially with cash, means much better to partake in illegal activity than it is with Bitcoin. You're going to get caught in 5 seconds. It's like Bitcoin is like an FBI agent. It's like wet dream as far as a paper trail. It's literally a paper trail that anybody in the United freaking world can look at a blockchain explorer and figure things out. So it's interesting. And one thing I will say too, at least in the United States, like saying unregulated crypto assets. Now, Bitcoin is pretty highly regulated in crypto. In the United States, a lot of crypto assets, if you're trying to buy them with the US dollar, good luck doing that. It's not easy to do it. So to say crypto assets are completely unregulated, I think is pretty stupid. I mean, even the SEC yesterday, and this kind of news somewhat overshadowed the progress that Blockstack and Props made with getting their Reg A Plus registrations approved by the SEC, where they can actually sell crypto assets or tokens essentially as a Reg A Plus offering, which is pretty great because anybody can participate in a Reg A Plus offering. It's not just for accredited investors. So it does go to a little bit from the democratizing investment. So we'll hop into the next part. So he does go into Bitcoin, does go into cryptocurrencies, says some criticisms that are kind of bullshit, is what it is. And then this is where it's interesting, at least to me. Similarly, Facebook's Libra virtual currency will have little, and he puts virtual currency in quotes, which is actually true. It's basically just a virtual currency. It's not really a cryptocurrency. Will have little standing or dependability. If Facebook and other companies want to become a bank, they must seek a new banking charter and become subject to all banking regulations, just like other banks, both national and international. We only have one real currency in the USA, and it's stronger than ever, both dependable and reliable. It is by far the most dominant currency in the world, and it will always be that way. It is the United States dollar. So this is interesting because, at least to me, what's up, Ben Zemmel? Thank you for that super chat. I appreciate that, dude. Why is this kind of cool, at least in my mind? Well, number one, it starts off with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. But that, at least in my opinion, that from me reading this, is not the subject of discussion really or fear. I feel like the government doesn't really care as much about Bitcoin, doesn't really care as much about cryptocurrencies. I don't think at least somebody like Donald Trump and kind of the people in quote unquote power give a crap about it. I don't think they really fear it. They just don't. However, what they do fear is Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook and Silicon Valley getting a bunch of companies together and basically creating a competing currency that is backed by the dollar or by other assets, that has billions of users and can possibly usurp or steal some of the thunder from something like the US dollar. And the US government losing control to Facebook, and I am not a fan of Facebook, at least personally. Like there are a lot of people that don't trust Facebook, and I think rightfully so. Facebook has done a lot of things from a privacy perspective, and they've just done a lot of things to lose the trust of the consumer. So that's one thing. But it is hilarious to me how absolutely petrified the United States government is of Facebook creating Libra, because it's kind of opening Pandora's box of, you're taking the technology behind Bitcoin and behind crypto assets, and you are unleashing that kind of to a greater user base, and you are competing potentially directly against the US dollar. And that's what I think the crux of this conversation is. I feel like Trump doesn't get Bitcoin, doesn't get crypto assets, whatever. He's like, you know what, whatever. There's nobody backing these things. There's no army behind it. There's nobody to fight. We can't do anything about it. What we are scared of, or what we're concerned of, is Facebook's Libra coin. And I do think when you look at this, we are talking about what's interesting about Bitcoin, and a lot of people give Bitcoin shit. Like before, and we had somebody say, okay, Bitcoin is slower than, Bitcoin is slow and doesn't scale. Okay, that's fine. That's totally cool, right? Bitcoin is 7 transactions per second. That's probably not a false statement. It's scaling and it's moving slow. But guess what? When Facebook creates Libra and Facebook gets a letter from Congress or from the Senate Committee on Banking within like 4 hours of dropping news about Libra, who are they going to send something to Bitcoin about? It's actually decentralized. It's actually there's nobody that Congress can send a freaking letter to that says, excuse me, Mr. Bitcoin CEO, can you please stop development on this tool? When Facebook is dropping Libra, Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and all the executives and David Marcus, they're getting notifications from the Senate Committee on Banking to appear in front of Congress or appear in front of the Senate or whatever it might be. And that does go to show the value of Bitcoin, at least in my mind, because there is nobody to call. There is nobody to send a letter to. You can't send a cease and desist letter to Bitcoin. It doesn't happen. And yes, there are certain trade-offs to that. Yes, the transactions per second are slower than something that might be more centralized, like a Libra. They are sometimes transaction fees are high, but guess what? You can use it regardless of whether or not somebody else tells you, kind of you're allowed to, and people can develop on it because it is sufficiently decentralized, which I think is something that can definitely be, which I think, at least for me, is a huge value proposition and something you need to think about in the long term. We're taking a look at all these questions. Euronymous Stolas, would I buy Litecoin right now or after the halving? I don't know. I wouldn't try and call Litecoin had a nice run previously. Altcoins definitely seem to have lost momentum against Bitcoin, and calling a bottom on altcoins I think is difficult. Whatever you're comfortable with. I'm not a huge Litecoin guy, but I do think halvings are always an interesting supply shock, and it's going to be what happens with Litecoin will be interesting, at least in my mind, because I think people will associate that with potentially what might be able to happen with Bitcoin. Although obviously the dynamics around Litecoin are a lot different than from an actual supply and demand perspective. I think there's obviously a lot more demand for Bitcoin, but you have a similar supply shock when it does come down to the halving. And Crypto Cruising says this is funny. He says about Bitcoin being used for drugs because no one uses fiat for that they have. Yeah, absolutely. And I've referenced this multiple times before, but it was, I believe, at the Consensus Invest conference. I think it was in fall of 2017. I remember I was still at my day job at Oracle, and I was watching the I was watching the live stream, and Chris Berniski was talking at the live stream, and he's giving his presentation. And he's kind of talking about why there's a use case behind Bitcoin and trying to debunk some of the quote unquote FUD that happens in the industry. And one of the things that he said was, he was kind of looking at some of the objections that large scale investors have when it does come down to investing in crypto assets, specifically Bitcoin. And one of the big things is, this is only used by criminals. And a lot of that stems from the Silk Road. The Silk Road was kind of like the big thing that initially from a publicity perspective that got Bitcoin kind of in the news was Silk Road. So people still associate Bitcoin with illicit activities and illegal things. And he said, look, you are much better off buying a kilo of cocaine with cash than you are with Bitcoin. It is going to be much harder to hide that transaction or to kind of get that money with Bitcoin than it is with cash. And it's completely true. I mean, if you have cash, you can kind of launder that, you can wash that, you can do whatever you want with it. You can keep it under your mattress, whatever it might be. If you have Bitcoin and that eventually gets flagged as coming from an illicit activity, you are going to that transaction will be tagged. There will be blockchain analysis tools out there that will be able to find that. The governments use blockchain analysis tools. You're in trouble. So it's not something that I think is thought of by people that don't have a lot of sophistication in the space. But it's especially with Bitcoin, the sophistication of the blockchain analysis tools are pretty high unless you have a really strong understanding of privacy. And even then, like the mixing tools like a Wasabi wallet and things like that are, I would say, still a small enough scale where you're not going to be able to mix a ton. So here's a question. I'll pull this up too. What are my thoughts on the Blockstack sale? So I personally haven't looked at the actual economics behind the token at all. So I can't really speak specifically. Thanks, Wall Street Journal. No, I'm not subscribed. So I'll pull it up from the block. So Blockstack, this is cool for a couple different things. Some people, if you're not in the United States, you're probably not going to give a crap about this. It doesn't make too much of a dish, it doesn't make too much of an issue potentially for you. But one of the big things that really has sucked for a lot of people is the accredited investor laws in the United States are not easy for a lot of people to be an accredited investor. Two things: if you are in the United States, there's two classes of investors for a lot of these cryptocurrency opportunities, at least initially. You have accredited investors and you have non-accredited investors. Accredited investors, there's basically two things that you can do to be an accredited investor. You can make $200,000 a year for 2 consecutive years. That will qualify you as an accredited investor. Or if you have $1 million in liquid assets, not including your residence, not including your home, then or the equity in your home, then you also classify as an accredited investor. So if you make $190,000 a year, or if you made $200,000 last year, but if you made $100,000 the year before, you are not accredited. You are a non-accredited investor, and you don't have access to the same investment opportunities that a lot of people have, because certain things like Regulation D offerings, you have to be an accredited investor. Well, there is a type of offering called a Reg A+, which is interesting because it allows for non-accredited investors. Basically, you can make $50,000 a year, you can make $100,000 a year, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be accredited, but you can participate in these offerings, and they are offerings for securities. So this is something that is approved by the SEC, but this is big for a number of reasons. Number one, it is a compliant offering, so the SEC has actually gone ahead and approved this. Number two, these are actually these tokens are considered, at least from the initial kind of look, they are considered securities. So it is something where they're not going to trade from a secondary market perspective, likely not going to trade in the same manner. But I do think that why this matters and why this is just kind of good in general is that whether or not this is a good investment, and I'm not going to speak to that, these are also securities, so I have no standing to speak on the quality of these investments whatsoever, but whether or not this is a good investment or not, Blockstack and also the YouNow props team and have put their neck out on the line, spent a lot of money on lawyers, and received approval from the United States Securities and Exchange Commission to offer their token to non-accredited investors, and the SEC said yes. So this is paving the way for opportunities for investment. Granted, there are limits and kind of regulations around it and of how much you can buy and things like that, but it's a step in the right direction for allowing the average person to participate in some of these offerings and not just the large venture funds. Granted, there are venture funds that were the initial seed investors in this that have these tokens that are now at a markup in comparison to what these individuals would buy at, things like that. But overall, it's a positive step for the industry. If you are in the United States, I think it's something, and you're not an accredited investor, I think you should be excited about it. It's a positive thing, and we'll hopefully continue to see other companies go this route potentially, and just kind of get more openness in terms of investment opportunities for the average individual, I think is what I'm potentially excited about. RC Phantom going with the black coffee, obviously. That's the only move, brother. Niek 1001. How can a digital centralized coin pegged to the dollar crash the financial system? LMAO, obviously referring to Libra there. Well, the interesting part about Libra is it's not just pegged to the US dollar, so it's pegged to a basket of currencies. So that's number one. So it's not fully pegged to the dollar. To that point, I think that when you're also looking at it, it's something that just takes control away from the government. I don't think that Libra itself would have any shot of crashing the financial system, but it does remove control, and it does provide an opportunity for it. It basically proves if it's executed well, if it's executed and it works, then you are having an opportunity for other Silicon Valley companies, other companies that have an enormous amount of control basically over how the world works right now through opinion, the spreading of news, the spreading of information. You have companies like that are now able to circumvent, in some respects, to essentially circumvent the US dollar and have their users use something completely different. So, I mean, for me personally, I think that is it, and it's not a cryptocurrency. It's like Trump said, it's a quote unquote virtual currency. It's a digital currency, but it is something that removes control from the powers that be, and I think that is something that scares them, and I think that terrifies them. 5:25 p.m. says thanks for speaking about Blockstack sale. I'm actually surprised you aren't more familiar with Blockstack. I am familiar with Blockstack. I know a few different people at the team. I know their, I think basically like their growth lead. I actually was talking to Blockstack a little bit back in the day just about my interest in working there a long time ago. So they're a great company. Really big fan of what they do. I just haven't looked at the actual like investment of the token itself, of the stack tokens. So they're great, great. I think they're trying to do the right thing when it does come down to cryptocurrencies, and they're moving the industry in the right direction. And what they're trying to build is really, really interesting. I just don't have a ton of insight into the actual stack token itself. I haven't really looked into it as much. Daniel Barnett says going to Sheets today to use a Bitcoin ATM. Any adoption is good adoption. Sheets and Wawa are my two favorite. I tweeted about this, but Sheets and Wawa are my two favorite gas station convenience stores. Wawa, sneaky good buffalo chicken sandwich, and Sheets has just phenomenal everything. They're both awesome. And we have Sheets now has Bitcoin ATMs in a few of its locations. So Daniel Barnett, I know you live in a vicinity around one of the six, so congratulations on doxing yourself. I'll find you, Daniel. Yeah, it's a good point. Crypto cruising. It's funny because I was thinking about that the other night. So he says, or she says, that 3 years ago, crypto would never have made news, let alone have a government leader talk about it. This shows it's making changes worldwide. Well, I wouldn't say. I mean, whether or not you like Trump, and I'm sure some people do, and I'm sure some people don't. Whether or not you like him, he is the president of the United States, which is arguably the most powerful person in the world. People in the government have talked about Bitcoin for the past few years. I remember when I got into crypto in like late 2013, like buying the top in 2013. That was around the time of kind of some of the conversation around Silk Road and the bit license and things like that. So the government has been talking about it for a while, but never in my like wildest dreams in December of 2013 would I, number one, think Donald Trump would be president. And number two, would I think that the president of the United States would be tweeting about Bitcoin and or other cryptocurrencies. So, and Facebook would be, it's the whole situation has evolved so rapidly and so quickly. It's been interesting to watch it pan out. So, it's crazy to me. So Crypto Static says, how is the market supposed to act on Trump's statement? Well, it acted in a pretty positive way, actually. I think it was around 11,400 as of the time of, I think it was around like 11,400 or so as of the time of his tweet, if I recall. And didn't have too much of a reaction. So it's actually up on the news a little bit. So I personally, I mean, as far as like, say, nothing he said was anything we don't know already, and I don't think it was a bullish tweet. I don't really think it was a bearish tweet. I think it was just him trying to me, it's him trying to go after Libra. I think Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are just kind of like a casualty of that conversation around Libra, but and like the conversation starter. But I think that the crux of it all is Libra itself. And so we can pop into some other topics here too, because we don't need to spend all day on government officials. It's really not my cup of tea. So we can go around that, which is pretty interesting. Although I'm sure a lot of individuals want to talk about that. Actually, the last thing we talk about is likely the actual quote from the Federal Reserve Chairman. So we can pull this up and see if we can get this for you guys. Let's see.
In the traditional sense, I think that things like that are possible, but we really haven't seen them. We haven't seen widespread adoption. I mean, Bitcoin is a good example. Really, almost no one uses Bitcoin for payments. They use it more as an alternative to gold, really. It's a store of value. It's a speculative store of value, like gold. So we don't have, and people, of course, have been talking about this since cryptocurrencies emerged. But we haven't seen it. But that's not to say we won't see it. And if we do see it, yes, you could see a return to an era in the United States where we had many different currencies, and in the so-called, I guess, national banking era.
So the interesting part about that, and I've spoken a little bit about it previously, but the interesting part about that is that Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, actually understands within 30 seconds, you can feel that, whether or not you like the Fed, he is not stupid when it does come down to Bitcoin. And he, like you said, it's fairly accurate, almost. And there are people that are using Bitcoin. We're not going to say that there are people who are not using Bitcoin for payments and for as a currency, but I think almost no one is using Bitcoin is a somewhat accurate statement. The majority of people that are utilizing Bitcoin right now are utilizing it as a speculative digital asset store of wealth, digital gold. That is the majority of the use case right now. Could that change with Lightning and some other things? Yeah, it could. But I think it is interesting that he brings up and kind of gets the idea behind at least one of the, one kind of value or use case for Bitcoin potentially. And I think this will probably stem a couple different conversations. I'm sure some people like in the Bitcoin Cash community or in some of the looking at very transactional blockchains are like, what, that doesn't have any use case. No, that nobody should care about that. We need cryptocurrencies that people use more as currencies. Well, that's fine, but if almost no one is using Bitcoin, most certainly no one is using the other cryptocurrency out there as a currency. So while almost no one is using Bitcoin as a currency per se, or as a transactional currency, I think it's still the most used cryptocurrency for those transactions, at least in my mind, outside of storing weather data, right? So taking a look at some of these questions here. We got the government conspiracy theories up in here. I don't give a shit enough. I just go about my day and live my life, and if everything goes well, it goes well. If all the shit blows up, all the shit blows up. And so we can hop back into expat Ron. Yayo. So we can hop back into the conversation here a little bit about the subject of Bitcoin dominance, because I think this is interesting, and I think a lot of you guys might I'd like to hear your thoughts on it as well, because right now we have the time where Bitcoin is absolutely smoking everything. It's the the kind of the joke just being Bitcoin up, alt stump, Bitcoin down, alt stump. So there's, no matter what happens, other than a few select altcoins, shout out Chainlink Marines, shout out Link Marines, and BNB, basically. Outside of a few select altcoins, you have basically Bitcoin crushing everything, outpacing the gains on everything, and you watching if you track your portfolio in Bitcoin value and Satoshi value, then you are seeing your portfolio just like whittle away, especially as Bitcoin continues to run up from the $3,000, $4,000 level it is at, all the way up to $11,000 right now. But the kind of common thread, or the thing that I think people that there's the people that have been in the market previously that are the altcoiners, or they're the heavy speculators that firmly believe that there is another time frame where you will have a significant run or some level of a run with altcoins. And then the other argument is like, nobody thinks these things are worth anything, that you're passing them along to a greater fool. It's the argument around altcoins is becoming like really interesting, and I think a lot of it does stem from people that got burned. And then you also have this subject, at least to me, of kind of like I'll say fake maximalism. And we'll say this because when you look at Daniel Barnett, my Leo bag is sad, bro. We can get into Leo. That bag is not sad. Keep accumulating, because it's actually not sad at all. But with altcoins, and this is something that to be honest, you had Ian Bellina on Block TV or something like that, saying that he is now becoming a Bitcoin maximalist because of the strength of Bitcoin. And I tweeted something that I actually, firmly believe in. And I think that there are people that are Bitcoin maximalists, and I have all the respect in the world for Bitcoin maximalists, because, and even, a lot of times they don't like being called that because that wasn't a label that they gave themselves or whatever it was. It was somebody who was like a derogatory term that either was Vitalik or somebody else kind of created, maximalism, yada, yada, yada. But I have all the respect in the world for them. They have strict principles, and they, firmly believe in Bitcoin. Good for you. Great for them. And they don't stray from that. However, what annoys me is the people that are not, I don't, if you want to be a big Bitcoin maximalist, great. If you want to have all your money in shitcoins and speculate all day long, go for it. It's good for you too. It's your money. It's your prerogative. You're not doing, it's your money, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it, and you should be free to do whatever the hell you want with it. That's not my choice. So there are kind of two ends of the spectrum there. But what pisses me off is when people are like, you know what? I got my face ripped off on altcoins, and I got my face ripped off so bad that now I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm a maximalist. And it's not, but the problem isn't necessarily that you're leaving altcoins and going to Bitcoin. Because if you, lost a bunch of money in shitcoins, and you are, looked at what you did, and you're like, you know what, there's no value in these, and I feel very confident in the value of Bitcoin. I believe in the fundamentals of Bitcoin. I believe in the valuation. I do think that this is going to either increase in value, or I just think it's a good store of my wealth. I like that. I'm going to go with that methodology. That's for me. That's great. Then you, quote unquote, you learned your lesson, and you evolved as a human being, and you have kind of increased your capacity to, you just evolved, and that's fine. But when people are like, you know what, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist because they got wrecked in altcoins, and that's the only reason, not because I believe in the fundamentals or anything behind that. That just means you're chasing a trend, and you're not even front running the trend. You're not front running the trend. You're chasing the trend. And you know what happened? You know what's going to happen to those people is, if and when, and I'm not saying it's a certainty that it's going to happen, but if and when it happens, if you see another altcoin run, the same people that now are going from, I'm in altcoins and I'm running back to Bitcoin because of I'm chasing the trend. Bitcoin's going to run up forever, and my altcoins are going to die. Those some people that are kind of chasing the trend are going to swing that pendulum back the second altcoins do anything at all, and they're going to chase the tail end of that trend after they get after they lose money on something else, and they're just going to chase trends and chase trends and chase trends. And I don't know, not something I'm personally super interested in doing. But again, too, I think a lot of it does come down to just comes down to your reasoning as an individual when you're looking at this stuff. If you were in altcoins and you go all the way back into Bitcoin, you say, you know what, I'm never buying another altcoin again, they don't have any fundamentals. There's no fundamental value. I don't believe in it. I was young. I was naive. I was stupid. I listened to some asshole on YouTube named Crypto Bobby. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Whatever your reasoning was for initially buying altcoins, and then whatever your reason is for buying, Bitcoin now, you believe in the fundamentals. You've thought about it through, and you're strong in your beliefs, then that's good. But if you're just chasing a trend, that's when you get in trouble, because then a new trend will develop at some point in time, and you're gonna look at it and be like, oh, this trend is developing. Meanwhile, the trend's already like past halfway through, and you're just chasing the back end of it. I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. And I feel like, if you are a maximalist, good for you. If you're a shitcoiner, good for you. But just don't try and be something you're not. So taking a look at some of these questions. Capitulation. Yeah, I do think we are nearing. I don't know. The funny part about alts that are down 95% is they can go down 99%. The funny part about alts that are down 99% is they can go down 99.9%. And then alts that are down 99.9% can go down 99.99%. So everything could always drop further. There's no limit to that, but it does feel like, it does feel like there's been some opportunities in the past where we have been nearing capitulation. Let me see if I could pull. There was an XRP tweet that was absolutely hilarious. Where's my guy? Let's see if we could find it. Come on, buddy. Here we are. This is funny. From from Bones XRP is, I don't even know if this is real or if this is a parody, but this, regardless, well, so far he's gone. Joined in April of 2019, so homie has the strong hands of a infant child. So I don't even know where things are since like since April of 2019. Like, how have you lost money even in XRP? It's even if it's down like what, 25%. So, but before I leave Twitter, I just want to say a big you to all the XRP influencers who have been miserably wrong about everything. It's not your fault that I listen to you, but I still hate you and hope you get hit by a bus. Ciao. That was the most epic tweet ever. And then he tags all of the XRP influencers, which is pretty funny that there are actually XRP influencers as well. But that tweet in and of itself is pretty hilarious. I feel like, I'm sure some of you guys have felt like that in the past, but I looked at this tweet and just a little, you could see the smile on my face. It's 7 a.m. I've only had one coffee. It's ear to ear just thinking about how funny it is that somebody that joined Twitter in April of 2019 was probably so stoked. He's looking at XRP boys and XRP Anderson and XRP Mister and XRP Owl's tweets and like, oh god, yeah, XRP is gonna take over the financial system. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And then it's down like 10%. And he's like, yeah, god damn it. I don't know if this is Neek10001 calling me. I believe you're calling me a typical moon boy. Okay. Thanks, bud. And Go prance along somewhere else, bitch. It took the dollar for years. What do we got here? I love you, Niak. XRP is the best. It's the best. It's the best. All right, guys. So start shooting away some questions here. We got a little bit of time before I actually have to get to work, but I wanted to come in this morning and hang out a little bit because I haven't had a chance to do so before. But yeah, if this tweet doesn't make you laugh, it is the funniest thing on the planet, and it absolutely should. You should be hysterically laughing every single time. What's up with XRP? XRP is I've always not been a personal fan investment wise in XRP, and somebody's mentioning Leo before, and it's kind of funny because I've said this and I'll continue to say it. XRP and Leo are the exact opposite of XRP to me, and Leo are kind of the exact opposite from I don't want to say supply and demand, but from a supply schedule perspective, you have XRP's quarterly reports. So I'll pull this bad boy up. If I can spell quarterly right. So in XRP's Q1, I don't know where the latest is, but in XRP's Q1 report, Ripple had sold close to $170 million of XRP to both institutionals as direct sales and then as well as programmatic sales. So it's a lot of supply coming out to the market. You have $170 million. That's a lot of supply that is coming out to the market. And is there demand that is actually there to meet that? Because if there's not demand, that's going to suppress the price. Something to think about. On the other end of the spectrum, when and people, I get crap all the time now because people are like, you invest in Leo, you're killing children, and you're supporting the death of the world, and yada yada yada, whatever it might be. But the reason I think Leo is interesting is because the supply is being burned on a consistent basis. Granted, it's a slow burn. But when you look, the supply of Leo is only 1 billion tokens, and they're buying it back with their 27% of their revenue. And yesterday was actually the largest buyback ever. They bought back 221 Leo tokens, which is $1.50 a pop, so like $300,000+ they bought back in one single day from the open market. So on one hand, you have a company you have Ripple and XRP. XRP is the currency. Ripple has a large portion and holds a large portion, but Ripple is selling their portion of XRP onto the market or to institutional direct sales, programmatic sales, whatever it might be. Ripple is selling a portion of their XRP onto the market to fund business operations and to seed the ecosystem, whatever it might be. But they're releasing supply into the market to the tune of $170 million a quarter last year. Or excuse me, in Q1 of 2019. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a company that is profitable and is buying back to the tune of, anywhere from maybe like $50,000 a day up to yesterday, like $300,000+ a day. So one is increasing the supply on the open market, and the other is decreasing the supply on the open market. I'd rather own the thing that is decreasing the supply on the open market. That's just me. So that's why, in my mind, I'm still excited about owning excited about owning Leo. Maybe that can be completely wrong. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at it, but hey, when it looks to supply, I'm looking at that. Max says, watch XRP 2x and everybody jump back on the bandwagon. This space is a short memory. Oh, I absolutely. There's no reason why it's not possible, and I do think that everybody in the space has a short memory. Like I was talking about before, you have the people that are leaving, or you have the people that are in the quote unquote altcoin world, or just have a lot of altcoins, and they're going to become Bitcoin maximalists. The second you see a 2, a 3, a 5x in some of these altcoins, you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to be sprinting back into altcoins, trying to chase that next 2, 3, 5, 10x, whatever it might be, if that ever happens again. Granted, that's assuming that happens again. But everybody in this space does have short memories. And that's also why I think it's good to try to learn from the past and let that inform your decisions on the present. Obviously, not everything is a repeat scenario. Not everything is the exact scenario. But to try to learn from the past as much as possible. And also personally, learn from your mistakes. Because I know for myself, I've made a ton. I'm sure you guys have as well. So Simon DV, Bobby, did you know Leo admins can delete Leo tokens? Yes, I did. And that is this pissed me off too. Let's see. This was the dumbest thing ever. So this is an article from Bitcoinist, and the title is Bitfinex's Leo token enables multi-billion-dollar fraud, Coin Intelligence claims. So let's dive into what this multi-billion-dollar fraud is. Okay, so Bitfinex is an EOS token and an ERC20 token. I think it's about like 60% ERC20. When you have an ERC20 token and you have a contract, so you have a contract that is on the Ethereum network, you can go to Etherscan or to a number of other places and you can evaluate that contract. You can read the contract. You can read the smart contract and see exactly what it says. Within the smart contract, there were two functions, which are programming functions within the smart contract, that you could pull that up and there. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. But within the contract, this is from Etherscan, there is a control function within that says the owner can upgrade the contract. They can burn tokens, and they can also potentially they can generate tokens and they can destroy tokens. So there is a function within the contract that says that. Granted, that same function is in numerous other contracts out there for ERC20 tokens. And why does this not matter to me? Why do I not care about this at all when it comes down to something? If Bitfinex or if any other company, this is true across the board. This can be in the contract with anybody, but Bitfinex is supposed to have 1 billion tokens, and that was it. That was only supposed to be issued 1 billion tokens, and they're supposed to burn them until they don't exist anymore, whatever it might be. If Bitfinex were to go issue more tokens, that would be visible on Etherscan, like that. That would, unless there was a specific reason, or if they were to burn those tokens, that would be visible like that. That's why there is a blockchain. That's why it is transparent across the board. So anybody could see that happening, and they could find out the reason why, and Bitfinex would be held accountable to the reason. Maybe the reason is good. Maybe there was some type of circumstance that justified it. Maybe there wasn't, and maybe you should sell all your tokens because they're lying sacks of shit. Who knows? But that is the beauty of having publicly available information within a smart contract on the blockchain that you can actually verify for yourself. So the fact that this was the cheesiest, dumbest headline ever, that because they had the generate tokens and destroy tokens function within their smart contract that is publicly visible on Etherscan or any other site that allows you to view a smart contract, that it enables multi-billion-dollar fraud. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. From Pig Venus, I see what you did there. You switched around a few letters. Good one. Classic. I understand. Thanks for your explanation. I understand Ripple. Well, it's XRP. It's not Ripple. Let's be specific here, folks. But Leo is basically the same concept as BNB burning. So there's actually some subtle differences there, which from Leo's perspective is interesting. BNB burns tokens out of the team allocation. So BNB doesn't buy tokens on the open market. What BNB is, or what Binance is doing, is Binance did an ICO and they kept a portion of their tokens as like team tokens. So whatever it was, like 30%, I don't remember the number off the top of my head. They kept a portion of their tokens as the team tokens, and they went to and they burned those on a consistent basis. And I think they just changed that to agree to burn all of their team tokens eventually, or at some point in time. But they have their own tokens, and it's not available to the public market, and they will burn those. However, for Bitfinex and Leo, the reason why it's even quote unquote better is that Leo is not, there's no team allocation. Leo or Bitfinex printed 1 billion tokens, and they printed those tokens, and they're all out in the open market already. So those tokens are all distributed. There's no team tokens. There's no advisor tokens. There's no nothing. Nobody got a pre-sale discount. As far as distribution goes, you had to be like an accredited investor or like a non-US investor. But everybody bought tokens for $1. The cost basis for everybody that bought them initially was $1. So pretty fair distribution from that perspective. Nobody got a 90% discount. There were no team discounts. There was no advisor discounts, whatever. But why it's interesting is because they have to go on an exchange or buy those tokens from the actual open market. They're not, and to burn those, they're not burning them from the they're not burning them from some type of team allocation that's not on the open markets, which in the case of Binance and BNB, yes, theoretically it reduces the supply, but that supply has never been on the open market. So it's really not that big of a deal. It's kind of more a psychological thing. So something to consider. Thanks, Kevin Gaspar. I appreciate it, brother. Mike A says, what do we have? What percentage of my portfolio? Probably look at my website, right? What percentage of my portfolio is currently Bitcoin? So about 35+%. So about 35+% in Bitcoin, about 30% in ETH, about 25, close to 25% in Leo, a little under 10 in Tezos, and like 1% AST. So that's, if you haven't seen my portfolio split, it's Bitcoin, ETH, Leo, Tezos, and a little bit of AST. So always pumping my own bags, crypto noob. Always, brother. It's always the way. Bro, man, dog, what's up? Good morning, folks. And sorry for coming in early. I just, like I said before, I have been just super busy with the new venture that I'm doing. And if you guys haven't checked it out, one thing I'll bring up too is have a couple different open opportunities right now that are pretty great. So if you are interested in opportunities in the blockchain space, have positions right now that I am working on, recruiting on in New York City, in Boston, and in San Francisco for software engineers, for sales development, and for partnerships, marketing, community management, technical, project managers, product managers. Would definitely check out proofoftalent.co if you're interested. That's the company I'm running now. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. It's cool to help people help people potentially work in the space. Have a final interview today with a candidate in San Francisco for a blockchain startup that I'm pretty excited about. Have some additional interviews next week. Things have been moving really quick, which has been super fun, but unfortunately it's kept me a little bit from the YouTube channel and the podcast. So hopefully we'll be able to just be better with time management in the future on that. Richard Holtzman, hey, good morning. Can I have a job? Do you have any marketable skills whatsoever? Because if you do, I will market them. If you do not, we're in a tough situation. Poke fan, what are my hourly margins? So I just recruit on permanent full-time roles right now. So they're not for the positions I'm recruiting on aren't hourly positions. These are solely for it. So if you're not familiar with recruiting, it's actually, at least I'll give you just the quick understanding for anybody out there too that's either interested in what I'm doing or not. But Proof of Talent is a contingency fee-based recruiting agency. So there's really no downside as far as companies working with Proof of Talent or candidates. So what do? We work only on for companies that are hiring for full-time employees. And we help them hire employees that are on a salary basis, and we take a percentage of first year salary and charge that to the company as a finder's fee. So candidates can work with Proof of Talent, and there is no fee at all. Everything we do for candidates is completely free. And then for companies that are working with us, we don't actually charge them unless they hire somebody that we provide to them. So we go through the process of speaking to everybody, pre-screening candidates, making sure they're a good fit, getting an understanding of their background, what type of salary they want, pass them to these companies in the blockchain industry to interview. And if those companies end up deciding to hire individuals that we have provided to them, then they'll owe us a fee in the future. So there's really no downside to it, because if you don't like anybody we provide you, then you don't owe us anything. And if you do, then you're actually hiring somebody, so you're getting a ton of value from that. And from the candidate side of the house, you don't owe us anything. There is no fee. There's no nothing. We're just here to help you out. So it's pretty fun. Recruiters need a Lightning Network. Fees are so 1990s. Yeah. I mean, I haven't taken any fees in Bitcoin or anything yet, but for referrals, and this is something too, if you guys haven't seen this, but for referrals if you refer a candidate to me, or if you refer a client to me and to Proof of Talent, we'll pay you $1,000, and you can choose for that in $1,000 in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or in USD, whichever you might prefer. So I'm thinking a lot of people in the crypto world probably want Bitcoin or maybe ETH. So you have that opportunity, you have that option. Loan Sophos, yeah, you can send your resume anytime. If you go on Proof of Talent, there's a submit your resume button. You can always do that. Always happy to review your resumes. Try and get back to as many people as possible, and let you know if you're a fit. And if you are, happy to jump on the phone and talk through everything. But do you have a number of opportunities right now? None are really remote, but if you are looking or interested to work in New York City, Boston, or San Francisco, and looking to work in those areas, and are either in the field of software engineering, sales, or product management, definitely would be worth a conversation. To be fun to have. And guys, at this point, it has been a full coffee hour. So I've really enjoyed talking to you about Donald J. Trump tweeting about Bitcoin. What a damn world. The government being petrified of Facebook and Libra, which I think is completely true. And just the crypto kind of world in general right now. If you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, hit that like button. It helps to get this video out to as many people as possible, and I would certainly appreciate that. Outside of that, guys, let me know if you have any questions. Always here. We'll hopefully be back in the meantime. And again, if you guys were interested in opportunities or anything like that, always check out proofoftalent.co and shoot us a follow on Twitter as well. Have a Twitter account at Proof of Talent. So would love to see you there. But thank you so much for your time. Crypto Bobby signing out. Hope you have a good one. Peace.